Welcome to the Holding Time podcast. Here we discuss breastfeeding in all its complexity, the ups and downs, the challenges, the triumphs. Whether you're expectant, a new mother, or simply interested, I hope you'll appreciate the incredible warrior women who are featured in this series.
I am a second-time mum, but I have 3 children in that my stepdaughter lives with us as well. So I've got a 21-year-old, a 12-year-old, and now the baby as well. So first baby was in 20s, second baby in 40s, so bit different. I'd say it's easier than in my 20s. I don't know if that's because it's the second baby, or I think you cope. Well, no one copes with sleep deprivation, but I feel like I'm coping better in my 40s than I was in my 20s with the lack of sleep. I don't know whether you just accept it more. Whereas in your 20s, you're like, oh, for God's sake, just go to sleep. Whereas in your 40s, you're like, it's a baby, they don't sleep, and just kind of suck it up. First time round, 20s, financially, you're in a different position to what you are in your 40s. So I've done lots more. So she goes to swimming lessons and yoga and all the things that are ridiculously expensive for the babies. But, you know, when you're in your 40s, you can manage to do those things. So, or I can anyway, this time round.
Does it feel like it's another chance to do it again and do it better?
Yeah, definitely. And do all the things that you know, I don't even think I thought I wanted to do those things then. I don't even know if they did swimming lessons for babies 20 years ago.
No.
Yeah, even if they did, I don't think I would have been able to afford it at that point. So, but no, it's nice. And I just think probably a bit more confidence to ask questions, to challenge things that come, you know, when a professional says something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's right or it's right for your baby anyway. So yeah, it just feels quite different.
And how was breastfeeding with your first child?
The first time round, I decided that I wanted to breastfeed. No one in my family had ever breastfed, so I'd never seen anyone breastfeed. And so I decided I wanted to do it. Just thought that you just kind of put them on and then it just worked. Went into hospital, had quite a traumatic labour. I was induced with Emily, and she just wasn't ready to be born. When they looked at me, she would have been late. If she'd been left to her own devices, she wouldn't have even come at 40 weeks. It probably would have been a 42-week kind of then induced. So she was born at 37 weeks. So she was kind of 5 weeks earlier than she probably would have been. So wasn't ready to come out. And then when I breastfed her, it didn't work, just work. Put her on, couldn't latch her at all. And in those days, the nurses just kind of grabbed your breast, grabbed the baby's head and tried to shove the two together. And the baby was screaming. I was crying. It was just horrible. And then the nurse just said, oh, for God's sake, just put her on formula. So I was like, okay. So she brought they had little bottles with teats on. So she just brought them. She said, there you go, just give her these. So I gave her those and then, went home and I just lost all confidence with it, but still decided I wanted to feed her. So I started expressing. So I was expressing all of the time, which was really tiring. You know, hats off to women who do it, who are kind of expressing, then feeding, then sterilising all the bottles. They are just Wonder Women doing all of that. I don't know where they get time to do anything else. So I did that, and I did it for, I can't remember exactly, but I reckon probably about 2 months, something like that, maybe a bit longer. And then I put her onto formula. And when she went onto formula, she became really constipated, horrendously constipated, where she was bleeding from her behind, and it was horrible. But then it was too late. She was on formula, so we just had to kind of swap the formula over and try and make the best of it. And eventually she got sorted. I had to wean her early because she was so skinny. She was vomiting all the time. It was awful. It was really, really bad. So this time when I had Nancy, I just thought, I'm determined to breastfeed. So I got books. I watched videos. I went to classes before. I went and saw, I don't know whether I'm the only person to ever do it, but I went to go and see the lactation consultant before she was even born, to just have a conversation about what had happened last time, and just felt better prepared than the first time, and I suppose more prepared for the fact I wasn't just going to go like that and she was just going to feed and it'd be magic. It might work for some people like that, but the more people I speak to, I don't think there are many people that happens for. I
interview quite a lot of women, and I estimate it's about 1 in 20.
Yeah.
5%.
That, do they? They're just like, oh, it's natural. Once I had Nancy this time, there wasn't the support. There was no support in the hospital. Different nurses were coming in and trying to give advice, but it just, some of them, without being awful, were student nurses and hadn't breastfed themselves. So they were trying to, they must have been on a course and were trying to recount what the course had said, which I was like, I've probably read more than you've read about it and been on more online courses. And I've also tried to breastfeed. Yeah, so it was just, there was nobody there. And an older nurse came in and she just said, can I put my hands on you? She said, because we're not supposed to touch you anymore. And I said, yeah, that's fine. She tried to get her latched on and did manage. But it was just, it's not a natural environment. There was no support there. So, our next door neighbour messaged my partner and said, congratulations on the baby. If you need any support when you come out, I'm a volunteer with Koala, who are the breastfeeding support people on Wirral, I think in Liverpool as well. So I came home, I discharged myself because I thought I wasn't having any drugs anymore in hospital because I'd had a section. There was no breastfeeding support. So I just thought, I'll just go home, it's easier. And then she came round, and just being at home and calmer just helped me. And I use shields. So I use shields. I've used them for probably about the first 3 months. It's probably over the past maybe 2 or 3 weeks that she's latching on fine without shields, and which makes life a bit easier because I'm not covered in milk all the time when I pull them off.
They're a bit of a faff, aren't they?
Yeah. I got used to them, to be honest. I was all right. I could put them on without looking, and yeah, it was fine. But I think with that as well, there's a lot of, even in the books, it's, don't use the shields, and people don't want you to use shields, which I understand that you can become over-reliant. But for me, it made the difference between breastfeeding and not breastfeeding. Bringing
about cultural change is really slow, painful, exhausting.
You've just got to get more, haven't you? I was at yoga yesterday and there's 8 of us there and 7 of us breastfeed, which is really nice. We all went out for lunch yesterday, so there were 7 of us all breastfeeding in the restaurant, which I think, it just, when you're doing it in a group of women like that, you just feel so much better than doing it on your own. I do it when I'm on my own, but I think you're more conscious of whether you're covered or whether anyone can see, or I certainly am, whereas yesterday no one cared. They were like, well, if you want to look, there's 7 of us you can have a look at. And no one was looking anyway, no one cared.
In a way, people do need to look. That's the weird thing, is that in order to overturn these barriers that people have, one of the ways of overturning it is to let people see it. And that is kind of why I started making the portraits into animations, because it's not just an image. You can only see so much in an image, but when you see women moving, you really then can, we're inviting people to stand in front of a mother that's breastfeeding and watch.
Majority of my friends don't have children, and so the breastfeeding thing, again, they're a bit like, this is a bit weird. But I was telling them about all the things that I'd read, which I didn't know about breastfeeding, about immune system, about how the consistency of the breast milk changes, if it's hot weather or cold weather, or your baby's ill, and stuff around if you tandem feed, that your breast will produce different milk for whichever child. Just amazing things. And I was telling them about that. And they're a little bit older than me, so they're not going to have children, but they were saying, we've never, ever heard of that. Never heard of it. And I hadn't. And you just think, why isn't that common knowledge?
I suppose for me, the issue is that women are convinced about breastfeeding, and it's when I talk to them, a lot of the time, mostly what they talk about is the lack of support around them. And it's not even necessarily, I do think they need more professional help, but they mainly need much more family support and then community support. Women are kind of damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. I guess my thoughts are that the only way out of that hole is to empower ourselves, to talk about it ourselves and to reclaim it as our own territory.
And maybe now there are more older women giving birth. I just think you maybe are a bit more confident to say, no, I am doing this and to challenge. I know I certainly was. From my 20s to my 40s, you kind of realise that professionals, they have quite a lot of the answers, but they don't have all the answers. Not applicable to every single baby, and you can challenge them. Whereas when you're in your 20s, you kind of, or I did, I just like, well, they obviously know, and I don't.
Thanks for listening, and thanks to everyone involved, our funders, Cheshire and Merseyside Women's Health and Maternity Programme, Arts Council England Lottery Awards for their support, along with all the amazing mothers and partners who have helped to make this project happen. You can find out more about the project by visiting holdingtime.org.